Here in the studio. And my name's Travis Turner. If you don't remember, Brick and Loft Realty.
Yeah, Collen, Brick and Loft Realty as well.
Yeah, we're doing this. This is number 2. So we've done this a few times in mock up, and now we're live and rolling. But
Yeah.
man, we've got some good info for you, guaranteed. Especially if you're trying to get into the real estate realm. I think today we're going to go down the real estate path. You know, Colin and I have been doing some deals together. We're really working on some off-market deals, taking on some projects. We're working with a lot of investors, and I think investing is a little bit more. It's harder than just being like, okay, that property's rented, I'm going to buy it now. I'm an investor, right? Because there's so many things to look for, so many things to do.
Right.
So, and Colin's working towards getting his first investment property, and I've owned quite a few investment properties, over like 130 properties in my career. I think right now I'm sitting at like I want to say I have 15 personal properties. I'm selling a couple. I own 6 with another guy, and then I own 27 with a company that we put together like a trust. So I do, we're not gonna get into all those specifics right now, but we can get into those later. But I think at the very beginning, if somebody's, so many people want to get into real estate, and I would say the number one question is why is it important, number one, to even get into real estate? Like, what's the point? What's the purpose of owning a property that you either rent to somebody or that you own? What do you think the main thing is there?
Yeah. I think getting into rental property versus flipping, like some people, it all depends on where you buy the property for the value. And now people look at 70% or 80%, and we can kind of get into how to price out an investment property, see if it's a good deal, bad deal, what you should do with it. The 3 things: buy and hold, flip, fix and flip, or just wholesale it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like your 3 main tiers. But why would somebody get into rental property? I mean, real estate's made the most millionaires, and most of those people aren't just making millions of dollars off real estate commission. So it's definitely going to be, them doing one of those 3 things to build up their capital and wealth in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my reasoning as to how are you going to, I wouldn't say it's the speed route to do it, but it definitely is going to get you there a lot faster than it would if you're just relying strictly on commission, which is why I would want to get into it as well. There's a lot more money to be made, and you just learn more about properties while you're in there, figuring out, okay, how much is this going to cost? How much is this going to cost? Right.
Yeah.
And your clients will look at you in a showing, and they'll turn around and say, how much does it cost to replace all these cabinets? And you're like, oh, I actually just did that in my rental.
Yep.
And you can kind of, pull from that. So
experience.
Yeah. So it gives you more knowledge about real estate, and also gives you the more opportunity to, make more capital.
You mentioned a few different strategies too, right? Real estate, you got buy and hold, you've got rental. I don't think you said something else, or you got like a flip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just starting out in your career, what's most enticing to you right now? Like, what would you pursue?
I think I would pursue wholesale first.
Wholesale, okay.
Which essentially is selling paper real estate. So you find a property for X price that an owner wants. You know that it's worth 20,000 over maybe, and an as is condition. You find a buyer on the back end, get them to buy that, and you get an assignment fee.
So technically, you buy a house for 100,000 from a buddy or your neighbor. Right. You find somebody for 140, and you're going to make the difference in the two, right? They get their 100, you get your 40,000. Right. Doesn't always play out this big of numbers, right? But probably like average, I think, is like $3,000 to $5,000, something like that. People can make. But I have seen huge paychecks from those too.
So you do that, and then you can turn around and use that capital then to roll into an investment on the back end to, i.e., either flip. Now I've heard that if you're going to get rental property, it's only worth the tenant headache if you need the tax deduction, because really, like, you need 10, 15, 20 to actually get real good cash flow where they're building up equity, and it takes a few years, because a lot of people buy a rental and they're like, oh, I'm going to make $500 a month off this one. Yep. I'm going to buy 10 more, and then I'm making $20K a month, and then I'm good for life. No, you know what I mean? It's a slow play on the rental side. So I think fix and flip, build up a pretty good portion of cash, and then once you have that in your bank account, okay, let's go buy 3 rentals. Or if you want to just rent out your personal property, kind of like you did.
Yeah, and I've been given advice of, hey, whenever you flip something, roll that profit into a long-term investment. So take
Mhm.
short-term gain and roll it into long-term so you can kind of redirect some of
Right.
those tax hits. And so that's a strategy that I'm currently implementing right now. And I'm, where I was when I was your age and starting in real estate, I think I bought my first house at like 23 and my first investment a year later. And number one, I'll say your own personal house is an investment. So if you don't own your own house and you're like, look, wanting to invest, buying your own home is an investment. That's investment number one. And
Mhm.
what I did is I lived in it and then moved out. That's a house hack, and we'll talk about that another time. But I really think that when you're buying your first property, when you're younger, you're looking more for a little bit of cash flow. You're going to get maybe 1, 2 a year is kind of your goal.
Mhm.
You're going to find some cheaper deals off market because you got the time. You're just growing. And I got my portfolio up to like 10, 12, and then I started having the headaches of sewer lines and all these capex repairs, and it was helping me with taxes, but it's money out of pocket. And
Right.
so lately, I've been rolling all of my cheaper, older homes and rolling the profit from the sales into newer stuff and paying down more of my debt
Mhm.
on some properties that I own. Because you're right, if you're making a couple $100 a property, but get hit with expenses, it's not a whole lot. But if I roll 15 properties into four that I own outright, well, I got four times $1,500. That's 6 grand a month. I
Right.
don't have a loan on it. Now you're talking like, I don't need 20 properties to make a living or to
Mhm.
like subsidize living. I can have five,
Right.
and then I'm sitting pretty, as far as bills and everything.
Mhm.
That's kind of been my strategy, and I think that people are looking way, way too long term down the road. It takes a while to, like you said, with rentals to build. You've got to really learn how to flip and hold
Mhm.
on to some and learn the process. But experience, as you mentioned earlier, I think trumps everything.
Yep.
Right? You need to have experience in it. So when are you going to take the leap?
Man, I'm waiting right now. I mean, actually, later today we're going to look at two duplexes in
Oh yeah,
two
yeah.
out an hour and a half. And so no, I'm rocking and rolling ready. I'm ready to make the leap. It's just about finding that right property. I don't want to make the wrong step and then lose a ton of money. So
Yeah.
I'm being cautious, but I'm ready just whenever the right property when I find the right one. So
Yeah, I think real estate investing is one of the safest investments you can make too, as long as you have the right person guiding you. Which
mhm,
obviously myself and Colin, we've been around it. Colin's helped tons of people buy investment properties, so he's been in around the game. He's seen their success, and I think that's really where
mhm,
I'll tell you real quick. That's where I got my love for investing. As I was an agent, just like you, and
mhm,
I'm still an agent, but I was helping people buy all these investment properties. And I remember one deal that stuck to me. And I found this house. It was my buddy's house, and he's like, "Man, I need to get this house moved for my dad." And it was in a good area of town, and he wanted 60,000 for it. And I remember being like, "Hey, I got a guy," and I gave it to my investor. I got paid $1,500, right, for this $60,000 house for my commission. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll let you list it on the back end." I was like, "Perfect." So he puts $40,000 into this house, and we go under contract for 155, and I get my $5,000 in commissions afterwards. So I made like 6,500 bucks, and I start working the numbers, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like, the guy made $50,000 in 2 months, and I made 6 grand, but I found the deal and helped sell it. And I was like, I need to quit doing that. Like I
yep,
am so tired of giving people like I want that $50,000, right? And so
mhm,
that's when my journey really started. Is I got tired of seeing other people make the huge paycheck when I'm doing all the work.
yep,
So that was
yeah, no, 100%.
well.
Definitely agree with that.
If you're obviously you're interested, and a lot of people that are watching are probably interested in jumping into real estate. So what do you think? What would keep you from starting today? What obviously is keeping you from starting right now?
hmm Yeah, no, I mean, it's not so much that something's, keeping me from getting started. Like I said, I just don't want to make the wrong move. I've heard time and time again of everyone putting, everything they have into one investment,
Hmm.
and then it's just bad egg and they lose everything. So I feel like that's one thing.
So other
Um,
people's experiences,
mhm. And
horror
then
stories.
Right.
Yep.
And then number two, not for me personally, but maybe for someone else that just doesn't know anyone, doesn't know how to get started, doesn't know how to, do the financing or anything like that.
Mm.
Um, I think that would be, number two. Um,
Yeah, we'll break down financing for people in a later. Yeah, we'll break it down in another one too. You guys stay tuned. But
right.
yeah, you're right. Financing's huge.
Right. And I think just the scary part of walking into a house and you're like, oh, this thing's bad, right?
Yeah.
Trying to envision either the flip side or the hold side and what it's going to look like is sometimes really hard for people. Now, not for I've seen and I've remodeled my personal house, so I know that you know it can kind of look pretty scary on the front end, but on the back end, in knowing real estate, kind of getting involved, and then knowing where you're going to invest. And it's
Mm.
probably best to invest locally first before you even try to,
Yeah, get crazy with
you
it.
hear of like a house in Tennessee that, Tennessee market's real good, and I found this house, or you see all these wholesalers on TikTok, they're like, these are the best markets to buy in.
Yep.
Those people have done hundreds of deals,
Yep.
so they already have their title company in place, they have their lenders in place, they have contractors that they've done vetting for, so they have all the back end, but they make it look super easy. So I think that's what would scare people too, because there's a lot of steps involved,
Mm.
but it is pretty simple.
Yeah.
um,
So you better have a good team too.
right.
Yeah, because we have the full setup, so we
Mhm.
know. So like, if I'm investing in Tennessee, let's say, I mean, I guess like something happens, and my brother, I don't know brother, but my brother lives in Tennessee. He passes away, and he has this house that needs some work, and I want to keep and fix it up, but I don't know the area. Probably first step advice you'd say then is finding. We'd have to find somebody local, like an agent that actually knew what the heck to do, right? Because that's
Right.
probably something that would be a good example. Because otherwise, I don't want to tackle a property in Tennessee that maybe the price I'm going to buy it at's way too high for the market to
Mhm.
remodel or something. So really sticking with people that know what they're doing, which is nice because we do everything. I mean, we do construction. We can help people with financing. We can help people vet the numbers, get an accurate ARV or after remodel valuation.
Mhm.
So that way people know what their property's worth, what they're going to sell. So that I think your numbers the most important, dude. Every time
Yep.
I've lost money in a flip is because either my numbers were wrong or I got screwed by a contractor, which that's a whole episode in itself. We're going
Yeah.
to talk about contractors and how not to get screwed by a contractor
Mhm.
because it happens, but that's going to be a whole different thing for another time.
Right.
But there's a book that I've read. Have you ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah. So
You've read it?
yeah,
Okay.
I read a little bit into it, and then I
You
like
read into it or you read it?
No, I read the book,
Oh, I
but
read some of the
so
book. Okay.
I got through it all, but then I like skimmed through it, and then so I didn't really, I don't feel like I grasped the whole
Okay.
book, but I have a general idea. But it's a good book.
Do you remember he was talking about how he was really talking to his friend about he wanted him to buy a property, right?
Mhm.
And he's I don't know, remember his name. He's like, Dave, look, this property down the way, I've already vetted it for you. It's in a good spot. If they're going to sell for this price, you should buy this one.
Mhm.
And he's like, oh yeah, for sure. And he goes and he's like going to buy this house, right? And the author talks about how he visits him in like 2 weeks, and he's like, hey man, what did you end up doing? Did you get that house or what? And he's like, well, no. I was like, I started talking to my neighbor and my family, and they were telling me about like how like they did it one time, and or they think the market's not going to work out, and you just got to be cautious, and it's not a good purchase.
Mhm.
And so he did, and he's like, so I didn't buy it. And he goes, and 2 years later, that house that sold, they put probably 15,000 into. I think it sold for like 40 grand. It was cheap because this book was written a while back.
Mhm.
It had all in for like 55,000. He said he sold it for like 140 grand in like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And the main lesson came from that of like the neighbor who was supposed to buy the property was listening to people that doesn't have any experience in the actual field they're even giving advice in,
Mhm.
right? So that the guy took advice from people without experience. I think that's a main thing. The horror stories and it doesn't work in real estate to make money because one time I had a horrible experience and I lost money. Well, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, great. Well, you probably didn't do something right, or you haven't had zero experience in the field. So why would I listen to you, right? Like,
Right.
I'm not going to listen to somebody about medicine or medical procedures if they're not a doctor or they have nothing to do in the field, right?
Mhm.
We want to talk to somebody that knows what they're doing.
Right.
So don't get distracted by all the noise and the people that aren't doing investing, especially those outside influences speak into your life and try to tell you to do XYZ if they have no experience in it. That goes for all walks of life.
Mhm.
Working out, eating, real estate investing, buying crypto, all these things. There's reason that people in those fields make so much money when they're at the top of their game is because they know what they're talking about. You
Right.
know what you're talking about, stay out of your lane. That's kind of like my what I took from that book, but it was one of the main things I took from Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's an awesome read, and if you haven't read it and you want to start real estate investing, I think it's a
Mhm.
huge one to read. I recite it all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, Robert, he definitely knows
you know him
what
by his
he's.
first name?
Yeah, Robert Kiyosaki.
First name basis?
This is the author of the
Yeah,
book,
you're like,
man.
what's up, man?
Well, they're saying Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it could, what if there's another book
Yeah.
that's similar or whatever? So,
Well, what would that be? It'd be like poor son, rich cousin or something.
yeah, could be something like that, right?
Yeah, something a little different.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we know it's worth investing in real estate. We'll talk about horror stories another time. Obviously there's a lot of barriers to starting people. What's really keeping you from starting today if you really wanted to. Uh, but let's just say that you're interested and you're not listening to people talking into your life, and you're like, look, real estate investing is where I want to where I want to be. Right? It may not be this second, but how would what would you do to get prepped or started today? What is something you could start today to get yourself ready? Let's just say in the next 30 to 90 days to buy something or to invest in real estate in some form or fashion. What do you think you could start doing today?
I think you could, for one, start seeing property. Maybe reach out to
Mm,
local agent. See what, because there's investment properties that are on the market, and you'll be able to kind of, if you pick a good agent to kind of walk you through the investment process, you can get a lot of knowledge there. So I think
that's
usually if
good.
something's on the market and it's sitting on there and it's an investment, it means the numbers don't work.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those.
So, just be weary of that. Don't just go jump into something because it looks like a good deal. And just, I think knowledge is key. So getting in front, having boots on the ground experience, seeing stuff in person. If you've never ever seen plumbing problems or you don't know what to look for at all, you
Mm,
know, obviously there's inspectors, contractors, and stuff. But just I think the biggest thing is seeing property in person. You can get there. I think that's a good place to kind of start.
yeah, I think it's a good spot too. Yeah, looking at property, you're probably going to go online, look at some deals, but,
Mhm.
learn areas. I think is huge too. As you mentioned, maybe start locally. You could even start micro locally of like, okay, where do I live? What
Right.
areas? Like when I first started real estate, I wanted to be the king of Tech Terrace because I
Mhm.
lived there. I
Mhm.
love the area, and there's honestly like it's crazy. Like if you have an old neighborhood, you have a brand new neighborhood, you can find deals, right? Like
Right.
it may be more prevalent in older areas because they've had more time to develop and people go through people and they need more repairs and those kind of
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
But I wanted to be the Tech Terrace king, man. And I was just driving streets all the time, knocking on doors, seeing dumpsters. Hey, who owns this house? That type of thing. I was getting after it. And, but I micro localized instead of all of Lubbock I was just chasing Tech Terrace.
Mhm.
And I was able to find deals because I was becoming known of like, hey, call him if there's something coming up for sale type of thing.
Mhm.
So I really developed a name for myself in the area for a short time there while I was really hitting it hard. So
Yeah.
I think yeah, if you're number one, you're researching, you're looking, you want to get with an agent, get with somebody that knows what the heck they're doing.
Right.
I mean, I would really say like talk to somebody that owns property or invests themselves because an agent will be like, oh yeah, I work with investors, and it's like, well, perfect. How many properties do you own? Well, I don't. Well, how many have you ever owned? Well, zero. How many have you flipped? Oh, I watched HGTV and I've seen them do it. Trust me. It's like,
Right.
it happens every time they pick three and they buy one. I'm like, that kind of thing. And I'm like, not reality, right?
Yeah.
So you want somebody to have walked through all of the headaches and the mishaps and be able to walk you through your first remodel. So don't worry, bro. I got you too.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready to do one, we're gonna do one together for sure. So we can recap and record the whole thing. But we're gonna find one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But
We'll do.
investing, I think, is huge.
We could do an investment 101, step 1 to step 10 or whatever, and then video all the steps.
Yeah.
That'd be a
Yeah.
cool video.
Yeah, we could. We could put it
Yeah.
all together and then like have the whole thing. Yeah, kind of walk somebody through like baby steps type of thing.
Mhm.
We'll make them all into long episodes to make everybody have to wait for the answer. It's like right at the end of the episode, and we're almost. And it's like, all right, now guys, check it out. We sold this house for, and then it's like, stay tuned, and then it
Yeah.
like cuts
To
out.
be
Yeah,
continued.
to be continued. And
Yeah.
then like the next week, it's like the whole episode now is leading up to that one point again. It's like 1 week earlier,
Mhm.
and then it's like shows everything.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. We'll keep people really, really in tune that way, I think, and not upset at all.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
well, I think that people should really look into real estate investing. We're going to break real estate investing down. Micro, like as we mentioned, you got all of an area. We're going to micro break down our markets that we look in. I think we're going to do the same thing for real estate investing. So we talked a little bit about kind of just some of the ins and outs of real estate investing, how to get started, very very micro, and then we're going to take each section and probably talk about really how to locate a property, really how to finance a property. How are you going to vet an agent? How are you going to know who to work with? What areas to target, things like that, and then really put together a plan to hopefully help you guys create more wealth through real estate and through real estate investing. So that's
Mhm.
kind of what our goal is here.
Yeah.
So obviously in the Lubbock market, Midland market, DFW, we'd love to help you out in those areas. really
Yeah.
anywhere in Texas. But if you use this knowledge elsewhere, I mean, we'd love to hear what you're investing in.
Mhm.
So
Feedback.
yeah. Let us know in the comments and just be like, hey, I'm investing here. Show us some numbers. We'd love to see some details you guys are doing. But honestly, we're just here to help you guys out and help you succeed. And
Yeah.
so,
100%. So.
anyways, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, I think we touched on, just the very minute basics on where you can start, and then we can kind of dive into everything else. So yeah, I think
Perfect. We need to use this chessboard sometimes. Maybe we'll start playing some chess.
that play chess and
All right, let's go
real
look at some.
estate.
Let's go look at some freaking duplexes. So until then, stay frosty.